It's just what Afghanistan is. We're there, and Reuters even reported, the Russians said, let's spray the poppy fields 2 weeks ago, and NATO and the U.S. said no, and there's more than 12 times what there was 10 years ago now coming in. Over 90% of world opium production is now in Afghanistan. It was down to less than 20% before 9/11. And so all this is, Mexico is collapsing because you have drug prohibition, and so that makes the price high, and you've got real drug dealers who aren't government-run, who are in there together, working together, attacking Mexican forces, Mexican federal forces, and others. And we had a state senator actually on last year, Burgess. You can go pull up that Republican senator, just go to YouTube, Alex Jones, Burgess. What's his first name? Michael Burgess. And he said, yes, secretly martial law has been declared on the border. This was over a year ago now. This was in early 2009. And he said there's secret military operations. Now, in December, that came out in the Dallas Morning News and San Antonio Express News and Houston Chronicle. It's a martial law situation in Arizona and Texas, not in New Mexico or California. Martial law has been declared on the border. And they are engaged in military operations down there, killing, allowing Mexican troops, talk about a precedent. And I remember when Judicial Watch in 2007 sued to get the secret treaty between Vicente Fox, George Bush, and Martin of Canada. And this is in my film Endgame, but it's on judicialwatch.org's website if you want to read it. And they said, we'll use security threats, flu threats, and financial threats as a way to merge Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. And I have right here in my hands NLE09, FEMA exercise, national level exercise, saying this year the United States welcomes participation of Australia, Canada, Mexico, the United Kingdom in, quote, taking on American terrorists. Now, I have a new secret FEMA document that they're threatening newspapers to remove of NLE 010 that deals with nukes going off in U.S. cities, right as Obama says the #1 threat is nukes going off. See, the feds, the intel we've got, aren't planning to do another Oklahoma City. They are seriously considering to finish their revolution against the American people, the offshore banks that want to collectivize our wealth and transfer it offshore. The commies are the bankers, boys. They are considering a nuke attack or 2 nuke attacks in the U.S. Now, I mean, I want you to understand something. Limbaugh is even talking about this now. We're going to be covering that coming up. So, and he represents a large echelon of the establishment, but not this offshore group. So you've got an internal fight inside the military, inside the media. I mean, look, America is about to die. If Obama's people can set off a nuke in the U.S., he'll be able to set up a dictatorship. Now, we got Mexican troops operating inside the U.S., killing people under U.S. control. I mean, the treason is getting worse and worse. We'll be right back. We are back live. All this news ties together. The FEMA exercises, U.S. and Mexican troops in the U.S. killing drug dealers in cold blood, completely illegal. Because if they can set the precedent for them, they can do it to anybody. This is how the British brought down China. This is how they use drug wars to undermine, take over the criminal gangs, and take over society. It ties in with Bill Clinton saying, I sure hope we don't have to have a terror attack in America to stop these Tea Parties with Wolf Blitzer. And Limbaugh's come out and said it's an open threat to demonize the American people. Michael Savage is saying they may stage a terror attack. So it's not just Alex Jones saying it. Let's get that clear. People are finally starting to tell the truth. There's open calls to shut down talk radio coming out of the White House and coming out of the U.S. Senate. I mean, we're in danger. There's the Cybersecurity Act openly saying they may shut off the web as we know it. This is real. This is happening. Now, let me just cover this piece by piece because I keep mixing it all together because I've got all this incredible intel here. I'm going to walk through each section of it. But let me just put this out now. So everything I know, minus the exact county that this has been going on, let me just right now get this information out so I'm safe. Because once this is out, I don't like having this type of information. This is from law enforcement and military. Okay? This is what happens. U.S. Army and other U.S. forces go into South and West Texas border towns. They drive in SUVs in plain clothes. Separately, air forces, helicopters land. They land in civilian clothes. Local law enforcement guards the U.S. helicopters. They then go stay at hotels. They then meet up in the field in plain clothes, but with combat gear, but unmarked. And sometimes they wear police uniforms, police special weapons and tactics uniforms, and they go out on hunter-killer operations, killing. And listen, I want the Austin American Statesman and the Dallas Morning News and the Houston Chronicle and others. This is not a joke. If you get up off your fat butts and go research this is going to be in the news. And I'll be a lot safer once it's in the news. I have to cover the facts. And the U.S. forces run surveillance. They have trained the Mexican Navy with Mexican Marines with helicopters to go in and basically kill anybody they want on the Texas and Arizona side. But the intel I've got specifically on Texas, but I'm told it's in Arizona as well. Now, remember, you heard this 3-4 months ago here on air. Then a month ago it came out, Sheriff, Mexican helicopter crosses into U.S. airspace, Mexican Navy aircraft with Marines hanging out of the doors. That's the Monitor. It's in the San Antonio Express News, Houston Chronicle. Here's another one, KRGV-TV, Mexican military helicopter spotted over Texas. So, see, this is all out there. Here is the Boston Globe. As Gates met with top Colombian officials, the Pentagon hosted a meeting with top military leaders of Colombia and Mexico to help foster cooperation. Mexican helicopter pilots are being trained in Colombia as a U.S. finance training center, while the United States is also facilitating training of Peruvian Marines in Colombia. So you can search and find pieces of this. But the issue is, it's illegal for an Iranian leader to pay an assassin to try to kill Obama or Bush or anybody else. It's also illegal when Pat Robertson calls for our government to kill Hugo Chavez. You can't do this. It's illegal. Okay, that's the law. And it's just as illegal for supposed people coming across the border. You know I'm for shutting the border down and deporting people and prosecuting companies that hire illegals. Nobody's stronger on this than me. But this is separate. And again, when you then have the SPP, Security and Prosperity Partnership documents, you then know, just like at the Olympics in Canada a few months ago, for the Winter Olympics, they had U.S. forces there. And then you read NLEO 9 and NLEO 10 documents from FEMA. This has been in the Christian Science Monitor and AP. I mean, I'm not just saying this. I'm going to go over these articles coming up in the next segment. They are saying they'll use, quote, Mexican and Canadian troops to, quote, fight American terrorists, foreign or domestic. So what they're doing is they're breaking the ice with the troops and the Border Patrol to work with Mexican troops and then be involved in serious felonies. I mean, it's illegal. And so you've got, just like we had 4,000 plus troops that died from 1959 to 1964 before we officially had combat operations in Vietnam with the Gulf of Tonkin, we lost 4,000 plus troops as, quote, advisors. There is a war going on in Mexico, 17,000 dead in the last year, just on the U.S.-Mexican border, 17,000 plus. There's a full-scale war going on. And I know the average person only cares about the Spurs basketball and the Dallas Cowboys stadium getting demolished or whatever. But people, you better understand, especially living, in Texas, this is dangerous for everybody. And the police are scared to death of the real drug cartels, and most of them work for our own government. And so you've got Mexican Marines, let's be clear, and Army, but in this particular case, Mexican Marines in the U.S. killing Mexicans coming across the border, just wiping them out, killing them, with U.S. helicopters and Mexican helicopters in the air running the surveillance along with drones. We told you a year ago there were drones. Last month they admitted there's drones everywhere. There is a full-scale war going on now on the U.S.-Mexican border. And it's completely secret and illegal. And this is absolute. I mean, I got this from one source a few weeks ago, and I don't go with one source on something this big. And then in my lap, this falls directly from the U.S. military. Directly from the U.S. military. Okay, this is going on. This is happening. This is illegal. And if it's Texas and Arizona today, it'll be Illinois, it'll be New York State tomorrow. It'll be Oregon tomorrow. And they've got agreements to use Mexican and U.S. troops in Canada, and Canadian and Mexican troops here, and U.S. and Canadian troops with Mexicans in Mexico. I mean, this is the North American Union. And they said through crises, military crises,